This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Just for the Spell of It with Gary Moss. And I think today's show needs a disclaimer, and that is we're not going to be trying to be rude to anybody, but we're going to talk about words that some of us may think are not politically correct, but yet they're real words in our language, and a lot of them are acceptable on the Scrabble board. So, welcome, Gary, and this should be a lot of fun today.
Yeah, hi, Karen.
Hi.
This is a topic that comes up quite often, especially when somebody is new to a club setting and certain words show up on their rack and they can get a large score for playing the word, but they sit there stalled for a time, scratching their head. Should they dare play this word? And there are a lot of naughty words you can think about. And are they words? Are they in the Scrabble dictionary? And what do you think offhand? Or maybe you already know the answer. Can you play naughty words?
Well, if they're in the owl or in the official Scrabble dictionary, if they're in either one of those, you can play them, correct?
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
the rule. That's the official rule. As long as they're on the official word list, you can play them. And there are more than 140 different words that are racial slurs, just words that have connotations. Um, the F word, for instance, and many others that you just kind of hold back using those when you want to be politically correct. And yet, if they're on the official word list, you're very welcome to play them. And the first time uh, there was a big uh, disturbance in the Scrabble community about these kind of words. I was an active player at the time. It was in the mid to late 1990s. And somebody must have felt offended at the time by the use of some of these words. Maybe nobody brought up the issue at all, going back to the original Scrabble official word list, which popped up sometime in the 1970s. Um, the way something becomes a word on the list is whoever controls the Scrabble organization, that's usually whichever company owns the rights to produce Scrabble and owns the Scrabble trademark. But I should also point out that the group that owns it here in the United States and in North America, it's not the same group that owns the rights and has the controls in England and Europe and Africa and Australia and other places around the world. So it does become a little confusing. Currently, the group that owns the rights to the to create the word list is NASPA, North American Scrabble Players Association. Um, that group, who has the right to uh, oversee the dictionary, actually has a word committee, and that committee is a standing committee. I don't know how often they meet, but they're the ones that decide about additions or deletions from the official word list. Now, as I started to tell you a minute ago, back in the 1990s, I believe Hasbro had charge of it, the toy company. Hasbro was being pushed by a number of people to eliminate the so-called naughty words. Well, this brought up a huge fight between the word purists and others. Word purists felt that a word that people recognized what it meant, be it derogatory or not, a word is still a word. And the purists wanted any word to be included in the dictionary. If you chose not to use it, don't use it. But a word is a word. And anyways, there was a big upheaval within the Scrabble community. And what happened to resolve it back then is a particular group of church ladies from the southern district of the United States, I believe mostly Alabama and Louisiana. They went straight to Merriam-Webster, who published the red volume that you can buy in bookstores, the official Scrabble Players Dictionary. I think at that time it was the 4th edition. And they applied enough pressure that Merriam-Webster agreed to eliminate all the naughty words, and they must have had these church ladies must have made a list of what they wanted to eliminate from the dictionary. And it was all under the guise of cleaning up the dictionary for young people, for students.
Okay.
They didn't want young people to even see those words or know those words. But we all know that the young people knew those words and they used them at their will.
Right.
But anyways, Webster eliminated them. So now it really became confusing for Scrabble players because the Scrabble community did not eliminate them from the OWL, the official word list.
Okay.
So now there are 2 versions of words out there. The Merriam-Webster version didn't have the naughty words, and it's a real dictionary type of book. It has definitions for every word that's included, while the OWL, the official word list, is just an alphabetized list of words from AA all the way down to the last Z word, which I believe is Ziziba, which is in the word list. And that's how it's been for all these years. So if I were a competing Scrabble player, in addition to the Merriam-Webster version with the definitions, I would have to have an addendum to know what those naughty words are.
Okay.
And Scrabble players, those that wanted to include all words, went ahead and created this list, and it is referred to as the Poo list, P-O-O, because they're naughty or dirty words.
I see.
Okay, so there are many words on this list that you or anybody might not even think to be a naughty word. So, to give you an example, ABO is on this list. And why would ABO be on a naughty words list? It is a derogatory term for an Aborigines person.
Huh.
Did you know that?
I had no idea. Nope.
Okay. And why would Skimo be on this list? Skimo.
Does it have something to do with an Eskimo?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
derogatory term for an Inuit person. Other words like Jew, Jew, is on the list. Mick, Mick, is on the list. Now, Nancy is on the list. Now, unless you know some reason for it to be on the list, most people would see that, and I think most people would scratch their heads.
Right.
Why is Nancy on the list? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Well, it's a term for a gay person.
Really?
A Nancy. Yep.
Interesting.
So many of us have no idea that these are naughty words. So let's say you only had the OSPD 6th edition, which is the one Merriam-Webster provides, and you wanted to know what the naughty words were. Even if you got a copy of the OWL, which includes all of them, I would say if you went through word by word by word, you wouldn't know if it was a naughty word or
Absolutely.
not. Yeah.
You know, and
so
as I tried to share with you the other day, we were doing a podcast and certain words were used, which none of us thought were derogatory or what, as you would call, dirty words. And somebody, said, are we allowed to use that? And, we all sort of were silenced by it because it was like, what kind of mistake did we make? And I'm now starting to believe that we've become too sensitive to a lot of these things. For instance,
yep. What this that kind of thinking is, it's just like recently President Trump said that if we did less testing, the numbers of COVID affected people would be much less.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
There's still people that are affected. Well, just by eliminating these words, it doesn't mean that no one's going to use them, and they're still words. All right, here's a silly one, I think. The word boobie, Boobie. I guess that applies to breasts. So you can't play that, or actually you can play that, but you would not know that it was on the dirty word list. And farted. Why should that be so terrible?
It's a natural occurrence.
Yeah, I tell you, the word spaz is on the naughty word list. And I guess that's offensive to someone who has a spastic
condition
problem.
Yep.
So, there are a number of words on here that if you've been raised to avoid using such as the F word or things like that, you probably don't speak it out loud most of the time, and you might find yourself using it when you're very distraught. I remember the first time this issue came up to me, but it was not part of a situation where we were talking about or thinking about naughty words at all. It was in my first large tournament back in 1987 in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was a large tournament of over 200 people. And at that time, I would say close to 50% of the people who played in tournaments tended to be older women.
Okay.
At the time, I was probably about 45 years old. And in the division I was playing in, I would say at least half of the people were women over the age of 65. So there I am sitting and playing this lovely little lady, and I get the F word on my rack, and there's a place to play it for around 50 points. And I sat there frozen. Should I play the word or shouldn't I play the word? I mean, this was like my grandmother sitting there across the table from me. And should I play something crude like that? Well, I thought about it maybe for a whole 2 minutes, and time was clicking off my clock. And I decided, what the heck? I'm going to play this. It's too many points to pass up. So I played it. She didn't even flinch. Later in the game, she came back with something that was more gross than that. And the game went on and it was over. And at the end of the game, I think I said to her, I apologize for playing that, but I told her, I said, it was too many words, and she laughed. She said, that happens all the time, and don't give it a second thought. Well, that's the way the game works. You just play with words you have that have the best score. And I didn't think about it at all until almost 15 years later, when the big controversy showed up in the late 90s. And then once that was all settled, it didn't come up again until this whole issue with Black Lives Matter came up just several months ago. So Black Lives Matter brought it up because someone realized that the N-word is on the owl. And they were horrified that the N-word still lived in a game. And most of the word purists, they don't use that word.
Sure.
But within the game, if you have that word, it's legal to play. Now, what I've learned over the years is there are 2 anagrams if you have the N-word.
Okay.
Okay. You could play ginger.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. Yep.
Okay. And if you have an S along with it, you can play snigger. S-N-I-G-G-E-R. But I have to tell you, I have played the N-word, and I've done it during the game, but I can't remember ever using that word. So other than during play. And on one hand, I'm sympathetic with the people who want to cross it out of the dictionary. But I ask you, if we cross it out of the dictionary, is that going to do away with it? I doubt it.
Exactly.
The people who use it. And so that began this whole controversy, and then people started looking at the whole list of naughty words that still remain in the official Scrabble word list.
And I guess it comes down to, and I remember using that N word one time when I was probably about 9 years old. I came home from school, and if you remember, we had a woman who used to come once a week to iron shirts and do the laundry for us. And her name was Tempe. And I loved Tempe. She was like a second mother to me once a week when I came home from school. But that day, I had heard the N-word, and kids were snickering about it. And so I came home and I said to her, I know that you're an N. And she looked at me and she said, don't you ever use that word to me again. And she didn't explain it to me, okay? But she told me that I could not stay downstairs with her while she ironed. I had to go upstairs to my room. She had never yelled at me or said anything that would hurt my feelings. Well, I felt that she was hurting my feelings. And I remember going upstairs and crying my eyes out. And when Mom and Dad got home that night, Tempe told them what I did, and I got in big trouble. And later that evening, our dad took me over to Tempe's house so that I could apologize to her. And it was only then that she explained to me why I shouldn't use the word. And, it was like, well, you learn things when you're in the playground with your friends. And sometimes you don't know they're bad words. And, I think it's a great thing to get educated, but who made it a bad word? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like somebody just decided one day it's a bad word. Well, it was a term, and I've never used it since, because every time I've thought about even it coming past my lips, I remember that I had hurt somebody who was very dear to me. So, But again, when you look at that naughty list through the OWL, do you ever question, like, why is it really a naughty word? It's a body part, or something like that.
If you're a Scrabble player, you don't think in those terms.
Okay.
You're only thinking about, is it a word and does it play on the board? Whitey's, WHITIES, is considered a naughty word.
Wow. Okay.
Crapper, CRAPPER, is a naughty word. I'm trying to see what else might look questionable. Wetback is a naughty word. Lesbo is a naughty word.
Interesting. So,
squaw, how about that one?
Squaw?
You have SQUAW. That's very offensive to
Native Indians?
Indigenous people.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So,
all right.
When you're...
But if
ahead.
You don't know that something is offensive, I mean, how would you know squaw's offensive if you don't have a number of American Indian friends?
Right.
How would you know that?
And I mean, and that was a word that we grew up with, at least our generation, when we watched cowboy and Indian, movies.
Yep.
And nobody came across and said it was a bad word. It was, again, a term. And
Yeah.
I think we
And
have.
what
Go ahead.
what about hard ass?
That's a bad
I
word.
know a lot of hard ass.
Right. What about badass?
Let's see. Badass. Yes.
That's
badasses
is legal.
Badass. Yes.
Well, that's
That's
good.
bad.
Because we have a new program coming on, and it has badass in the title. So we're not thinking of it as a naughty word, but, I guess there could be some people who might not like that. Interesting.
What about all those people named Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
Johnson's bad.
Or my husband, his name is Richard, but back in the day, people would call him Dick, and he refuses, for anybody to use that because when he was growing up, it was not considered a very nice term, but yet it's a name.
And what about Shiksa?
That's considered a bad word?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
Wow. So the things that
So anyways, there's all of these things. I don't know why this is bad, but wazoo. 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 Up the wazoo.
Well, I don't mean to laugh and make fun.
The word goy. Goy.
See, and for me, hearing that all my life, it was just, a non-Jewish person. I didn't think of it as being derogatory.
Yeah, I would think most non-Jewish people, most don't know the word goy, or unless it was used on them in a derogatory way.
Right. How interesting. Well, the nice thing about doing this podcast is it's helping my Scrabble game, obviously, but, learning how words are interpreted differently by so many people. And again, from what I just learned recently, the word boy is now a derogatory term.
Ah, yeah.
And so what does that mean? I have a male and a female child, no longer a boy and a girl. It's like when I call somebody, a boy, it's because he's a young child. But I guess going forward, I'm going to have to be careful what I say now.
Yeah. Well, let me give you one more piece of information.
Okay.
I said that during this Black Lives Matter situation, the whole question came up again about naughty words and whether they should be used in Scrabble. Well, here's something I'm going to read because it just came to me in an email today. It says, as many of you may have heard, NASPA and Hasbro recently announced an agreement to remove certain slurs from the North American tournament word list. So that would include all these naughty words we've been talking about. They have agreed to remove them. It doesn't say exactly when, but I would assume that when clubs and tournaments resume again, they will be deleted. Now, there's still, words, but that's going to be sort of confusing to the Scrabble players anyways, because officially they won't be considered words, but it will require reprinting of dictionaries and remaking of programs, anagram programs for computers that have all of these naughty words still show up as legitimate plays. Now, I think what I just read to you, can be trusted, but if anyone wants to find out definitively, they can write a letter to NASPA, North American Scrabble Players Association. I think if you went to NASPA.com on your computer, I think it would take you to their website.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't feel like it would be worth a fight to try to save these words, but I don't think it's really necessary because they've put in so many other nonsense things into our dictionary. Like in some circles, they use the word what's-is as a single word.
Yes.
WHATSIS as one word. That's legal to use now in the game of Scrabble.
Wow.
Even though, yeah, there's a whole bunch of those on the legal word list and in the Merriam-Webster version as well. So you start wondering, what is this all about? But as I've pointed out before to people who play the game, it's not just a word game, it's a memory game.
Okay.
I don't know how many people out there play the game Mahjong. And if you're a member of the Mahjong National organization, you buy a card each year which has the hands that you may play, and then the hands change year after year. And so it behooves you to memorize the whatever is legal in that year. Well, it's the same thing in Scrabble. Our dictionary changes from time to time, and when you're playing, you can legally play anything on that word list. It behooves your opponent, if they think you're playing something that's not on the list, they can challenge you. But if they don't challenge your word, you could play anything.
Right.
And you can get the score if it's not being challenged. So, anyways, Scrabble is a game of memory as much as it's a game of words.
Well, it's a fun game to play, and for those of you who are still spending a lot of time at home, you can play Scrabble online. There's also other versions of Scrabble that you can play, and it can help build your memory, as we've talked about in the past, and get you ready for club and tournament when life resumes to a more normal pace.
If anybody wants a copy of this poo list, all these naughty words, you're welcome to send me an email, jftsoi.moss@gmail.com, request the list, and I'll send it to you in a file that you can open. I'll send it as a PDF file, which should work on any computer.
Absolutely.
And, just your curiosity might wonder what's on here. I'm looking, the word feminazi is on here.
Feminazi. Huh.
Boy, that would be a great play.
Yeah.
Got a Z in it. Yeah. I never thought of playing that before.
Having all
But
those letters at the same time, too, or close to it.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you won't be able to play that anymore once NASPA makes its change.
Right.
So, anyways, it's an interesting list. And yeah, in fact, you probably, if I went through this, only about a third of these words are obviously naughty to me. And I would have to dig deeply to figure out why some of these are considered naughty at all.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for sharing this conversation today in this podcast because we're all trying to be politically correct. And we apologize in advance in case we don't know that we're using a word that may offend another. So we will be on the lookout for the changes and for playing a fun game of Scrabble.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you next week.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.